This presentation is on rural Appalachian, Ohio, and my name is Megan Rivera. This is for the Social Work Department at King University. Social Work 5012, Clinical Advocacy in Underserved Areas with Professor Clifford Rosenbaum. This presentation is on rural Appalachian, Ohio. So kind of what is it? It is going to be a region that stretches from northeastern Ohio and goes along the border to the south. And it actually contains 32 counties in Ohio. It is much different from the rest of Ohio as it contains rolling hills, deep valleys, and rugged terrain. This landscape, although beautiful, creates the struggle of obtaining resources, as traveling in this region comes with its challenges, especially as the seasons change, winter, things like that. Although traveling may be a struggle, this area has been known to have a great deal of natural resources, including fertile valleys, coal seams, and lots of timber. This led to this region being big during the Industrial Revolution. However, since then, many of these jobs have been considered dangerous, which has led to the decline in their economy and has decreased these traditional jobs from taking place. Along with, there was a lot of exploitation in this area due to these natural resources. So then this aids in the challenges this community faces, such as issues with education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Although this community has their challenges, they also have their own heritage, which includes music such as bluegrass, quilting, and traditional meals like pierogi and ganache. So the next question might be, what makes this area underserved? So rural Appalachian, Ohio, is an underserved population as they face much adversity and receive little help for the great need that they face. So some of these concerns that they're facing include health issues, food insecurity, opioid addictions, educational disparities, and the list kind of goes on, but those are going to be the main ones I hit on. And one will actually see that as I go through this presentation, a lot of these things are kind of interlinked, and one issue kind of creates the next issue. Rural Appalachian, Ohio has a population that is struggling with health issues at higher rates than what is seen as commonly normal throughout the state and even the country. So according to Shalikoff, they are seeing above averages levels of even disabilities as well. So the health issues range from medical things that literally are debilitating and they're unable to work, and other chronic diseases and things like that, which is actually leading to less people in the workforce and more people living in poverty. And this becomes a ripple effect that then leads to food insecurity, which leads to obesity and individuals being classified as overweight. So one thing kind of leads to the next. They then are facing other health issues such as chronic diseases like diabetes. So diabetes is also more common and more prevalent in this area than in most. And then all of this, in turn, is then poorly managed by having limited healthcare resources, no insurance, and overall lacking the finances to get the proper treatment that they need. So rural Appalachian, Ohio has a large percentage of individuals living with food insecurity. This simply means that they do not have the finances to properly buy food to keep up with their hunger and nutritional needs. Holben and Feely stated that their sample from rural Appalachian, Ohio had about 3 times the level of food insecurity with and without hunger, and more than 7 times the level of food insecurity with hungers as the state population. So this means that this population of people are greatly struggling with this issue, which is beyond what is considered normal in most parts of even just Ohio. And Shaloff et al. Actually states that about 18% of the population in Appalachian, Ohio lives in poverty. Poverty oftentimes leads to food insecurity, as individuals are unable to afford both quality and quantity amounts of food. And then Holben and Feely kind of explained that this leads many of these individuals to struggle with obesity and being overweight, which was kind of previously mentioned. This is largely due to food insecurity causing these individuals to binge eat when food is available, as well as them buying lower quality foods that are significantly cheaper than standard healthy foods, along with their metabolisms constantly changing to keep up with the changes in how much food they are consuming. Rural Appalachian, Ohio has also unfortunately been hit by the opioid epidemic. This is an alarming issue, as Sholoff et al. Explains that Ohio is ranked second in the nation for deaths due to drug overdose. In rural Appalachian, Ohio, they have seen this at large, as they have high mortality rates due to the opioid epidemic. But this is not news to many, as this area has also been known to harbor pill mills. So Sholoff et al. States that pill mills are physician-operated clinics that masqueraded as pain management centers and flooded the area with opioid painkillers. So this led to much of the epidemic that has really crushed this region. So although the easy access is part of the blame for individuals becoming addicted to opioids in this region, there is also issues of trauma that have led to these high rates. And Sholoff kind of goes into that by stating structural factors in Appalachia, Ohio, including economic shocks, poverty, social distress, and adverse childhood experiences have aided in the uprise of these substances. So that community trauma has really forged this issue and has created it in a stronger sense. So rural Appalachian, Ohio also faces educational disparities. Hicks found that students that struggle in school were those living in poverty, or rather were considered to be economically disadvantaged. Teachers at one of the local schools stated that they were unable to close the achievement gap between economically disadvantaged students and non-economically disadvantaged students. However, what creates this gap? So Hicks reports that areas of rural Appalachian, Ohio lack the proper resources to teach their students. And then the lack of resources can really make it harder to engage with students and get them the proper education that they need. Hicks also reports that this area lacks quality teachers. So this simply means that the level of education that these teachers have received may not be to standard, or they may not be as high as other teachers from other areas, or they may not have as much experience teaching. So this creates a further gap for those living in this region, as the teachers are not as prepared to address educational issues of those that may not have as much familial support and things like that. Although resources may be limited and quality of teachers may not be to standard, Hick raises the question on if part of the issue is also the way that the teachers view students that are economically disadvantaged. This is believed that this in part could be due to the teachers expecting less from these individuals, which in turn kind of sets them up to fail, as they're not being pushed as hard as maybe some of the other students, or they're not getting as much one-on-one attention. And so overall, they're not receiving the proper help necessary to really get them where they need to be. So now when it comes to practicing social work in rural Appalachian, Ohio, it comes with a need for a unique skill set that maybe urban social workers might have to adjust. So Daly does an excellent job at breaking down how to work with rural persons. He explains why taking a person and environment perspective is important, especially with the rural community. However, it is important to understand that this may look different for each individual rural community. This is due to the fact that each rural community comes with their own culture, history, and deeply held values. So this is why it's going to be important to take into consideration the 5 social systems that influence individuals from the rural community. These social systems are stated by Daly on page 269 and include individual, family, group, organization, and community. Daly goes on to state that because rural people are deeply enmeshed in their surrounding environment, the concept of incorporating that environment into social work, assessments, and interventions is critical. This approach really encourages the social worker to view the clients as a whole, to see what influences them and what has made them who they are. So not only is taking a person and environment approach important, but it is critical that social workers adjust how they interact with this population. Daly states on page 35 that the heart and soul of rural social work is the relationship that a social worker builds with clients and the community. This is going to be greatly due to rural areas having a tight-knit community that typically does not like outsiders. So rural social workers must find ways to integrate into the community and build positive relationships with the community through reputation and things like that. Now, this could look like going to local events, learning local customs, understanding the community's history, working with and speaking with local figures, and creating events to kind of meet the community where they're at. So for this particular community, when it comes to attending local events, it could be going to the fair, attending a back to school bash. This could help aid in the local social worker really learning the community's customs. And when it comes to rural Appalachia, Ohio's history, social workers must be ready to understand its effects on its community. This community has faced the opioid epidemic. They continue to struggle with poverty and food insecurity, to also having issues with the economy due to exploitation of the land and so on. These traumas that this area has faced have really bonded the community together, which is going to be important for the social worker to understand. And Daly also addresses that it's important to really connect with the local figures, as they tend to greatly influence rural communities. And then lastly, one idea would be for the local social worker to create a local event to pull in community members and make themselves kind of known within the community. So this could look like a food drive, especially because this area faces so much food insecurity. The more people are seeing that the social worker is actually making a change and making a difference, the more apt they are going to be to really listen in and get to know the social worker and be more open to what they have to offer. So the next question one might ask is, where should the local social worker start? Should they address food insecurity, the opioid epidemic, educational disparities, health issues, or something else first? So the overall issue that this area faces is issues with the economy, which kind of creates all these other issues. But should one of these adverse responses be addressed first? So one of these effects from the fallen economy, since kind of overcoming economy issues is going to be such a big task and it's not going to happen overnight, is there something that the social worker should be addressing first? So I personally believe the best place to start is going to be addressing with the food insecurity. This population has many people that fear and struggle knowing where their next meal is coming from. Hunger can prevent them from overcoming other obstacles that they face. And as previously mentioned, food insecurity can cause health issues like obesity, lead to people being overweight and things like that. But these aren't the only issues that food insecurity causes. Food insecurity also causes issues such as worse general health, increased utilization of emergency room department services, worse academic performance, poor social outcomes, anxiety, and depression. These adverse effects were especially seen to be true in children, which is why it is crucial that this be the one thing that we address first as social workers, is making sure that people are being fed. Okay, and now that one is aware that food insecurity greatly impacts rural Appalachian Ohio and understands the adverse effects of it, it's going to be crucial that the social worker explore how to overcome this issue. One way social workers can help with food insecurities is by helping and encouraging impoverished families to sign up for governmental assistances like SNAP. Not only is there SNAP, but there's also other programs like WIC that aid in providing food to low-income families. This is where it is crucial that the local social worker builds a positive working relationship with clients, as many rural people do not like to ask for help or receive governmental assistance, as discussed by Daly. This pride in culture cultural beliefs can lead to those with food insecurities remaining hungry. If approached appropriately, these individuals may be more keen and open to receiving the help they are in need of. For those that are completely against receiving governmental help, there are other options. However, these options can be limited due to location. But some other resources that the local social worker can recommend may include food pantries, soup kitchens, and even church outreach programs. The key is meeting those from this community where they are at and really ensuring that they are getting their nutritional needs met. So overall, rural Appalachian, Ohio is a greatly underserved community. They have faced great hardships and continue to battle with various adversities. These adversities include the opioid epidemic, educational disparities, food insecurity, health issues, and more. It is crucial that any social worker going into this area be prepared to build strong relationships, as this community has been knitted together through the various traumas they have faced. And then here is my reference page. I'll let you go ahead and take a look at that for a second. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.